Day 181, Acts 10, 1 through 24. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian regiment, a devout man and one who feared God with all his household, who gave alms generously to the people and prayed to God always. About the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly in a vision an angel of God coming in and saying to him, Cornelius. And when he observed him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? So he said to him, Your prayers and your alms have come up for a memorial before God. Now send a man to Joppa and send for Simon, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging with Simon a tanner, whose house is by the sea. He will tell you what you must do. And when the angel who spoke to him had departed, Cornelius called 2 of his household servants and a devout soldier from among those who waited on him continually. So when he explained all these things to them, he sent them to Joppa. So you have Cornelius, a centurion. This is Rome. This would be not a Jew. This would be so different than what they thought was going on. But here's a man who was seeking God. Here's a man who was giving to God. Here's a man who is praying and fasting, and he's doing all these things unto the Lord. And now an angel appears to him and gives him instructions to call for Peter. Peter, who walked with Jesus. Peter, who was right next to Jesus through it all. Verse 9, the next day as they went on their journey and drew near the city, Peter went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. Then he became very hungry and wanted to eat. But while they made ready, he fell into a trance and saw heaven opened and an object like a great sheet bound at the 4 corners descending to him and let down to the earth. In it were all kinds of 4-footed animals on the earth, wild beasts, creeping things, and birds of the air. And a voice came to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord. For I have never eaten anything common or unclean. And a voice spoke to him again the second time. What God has cleansed, you must not call common. This was done 3 times, and the object was taken up into heaven again. So Peter's having a moment with God. Peter was praying, fasting, and now he has a vision of these unclean animals, and God is telling him to eat unclean animals. Look, if you grew up in that generation, if you grew up in that society, if you grew up in that relationship with God the way they had it, there were so many rules. Go back to the Old Testament, reading Leviticus, reading all these things that they were trained to follow. They could eat this, they couldn't eat that, they could do this, they couldn't do that, and it was all these things. And now in a vision, God's telling them to eat that which you could never eat. This had to have been so overwhelming. This had to have been so confusing. This had to have been so paradigm shift, completely different than anything he's ever known, yet he's being prepared. Verse 17, now while Peter wondered within himself what this vision which he had seen meant, behold, the men who had been sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. So Cornelius's people are showing up. And they called and asked whether Simon, whose same name was Peter, was lodging there. While Peter thought about the vision, the Spirit said to him, Behold, 3 men are seeking you. Arise, therefore go down and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Then Peter went down to the men who had been sent to him for Cornelius and said, Yes, I am he whom you seek. For what reason have you come? And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, one who fears God and has a good reputation among all the nations of Jews, was divinely instructed by a holy angel to summon you to his house and to hear words from you. Then he invited them in and lodged them. On the next day, Peter went away with them, and some brethren from Joppa accompanied him, and the following day they entered Caesarea. Now Cornelius was waiting for them, and he called together his relatives and close friends. So they came and they got Peter, and now Peter is heading to Cornelius's house because the Lord is instructing him. So the Lord's speaking to Cornelius through an angel. The Lord is speaking to Peter through a vision. There's a lot of supernatural activity going on that is bringing this meeting together. Makes me wonder how many of those meetings are going on now. Maybe God is calling you as a believer. If you're a believer, maybe he's calling you, but maybe the Lord is giving you vision. Maybe the Lord is speaking to your heart. Maybe the Lord is giving you a dream and telling you to go somewhere and you don't understand. Maybe God is speaking to someone that's somewhere through a vision or through an angel or through dreams, preparing them for you who's going to come to them. See, we can't get so caught up on when we hear something like, oh, what's going to happen? Or are you sure, Lord? And you got to trust that Lord can speak on their party too, that God can be conducting the whole thing. Our job is to be obedient as he shows us. Let's be obedient to the Lord and trust the Lord in whatever he's calling us to do. Amen.